Hello everybody, good morning. Good morning or good evening. Hello everybody. I'll wait for some of you popping in and tuning in the IG live we will do tonight. So this is another session, the second appointment that we have for the time for tea. Every Tuesday, more or less, I will have a cup of tea and a talk with a special guest. Of course, the guest is always related to tea, and we will discuss about what tea represents for us, if this tea represents for us a moment of relax, if tea is for us just work, business, if tea is whatever, depending of the guest. Tonight, I want to keep the surprise, but for me, the guest tonight is a very important, special person. It's kind of sort of celebrity for me because it's the editor-in-chief of this tea magazine. I'm sure that a lot of you that are here and that will see this IGTV or IG session or the video, I will record the video and save on 𝚏𝚅. So don't worry if you cannot tune in. It's always difficult to agree for the time for everybody. But this is 80 Degrees magazine. It's a magazine all about tea. It has beautiful picture. So this is one of the things. It has very articles related to tea, different part of the world, different topics, aviations, but I don't want to talk a lot about it. I will let Martin talk, which is the editor-in-chief of this magazine. And we want to ask him how everything started and what tea represents for him. As you know, the main aim of 𝚏𝚅 is to show how tea can be a moment of mindfulness for you, a moment that you really gift to yourself. So let's see. I see that he's here. Please ask me to join. Let me see if we can do that. If you send me the request, here we go. I should accept now. Hello. Hi.
Hello, Elisa. How are you?
Here we are. Good, thank you. I was doing a brief introduction and unveiling the guest for tonight. Thank you very much for joining and accepting my invitation.
Thank you for the invite. Happy to be here.
I'm really honored, really. I was telling to my friends here and people how important it is for me. I'm really excited because this magazine and all the issues published until now are like a sort of Bible for us tea lovers. As you can see, it's like I put marks and I really like it's not that really is a study. So thank you
That's
very
wonderful.
much.
I'm
Where
very
are you
happy to hear
now,
that.
first of all?
I'm in Portugal, at home in Portugal.
Okay, and I
It's
kindly
still
ask
light.
you to introduce yourself with a full name, which for me is impossible to pronounce, and tell us more about you. I mean, I want just to please give us a little introduction of yourself too.
Sure. So my name is Martin Boháčik. That's how my name is pronounced. A lot of people don't know. I'm in Portugal. I'm originally from Slovakia, actually, but I've lived in
Mm-hmm.
Portugal for 3 years now. It's still daylight at this hour, which is wonderful.
Yes,
And yeah, I mean, you wanted to know how the magazine started, which happened
yes.
almost 2.5 years now, 2.5 years ago. the first issue came out. And it really coincided with the fact that I was moving to Portugal from London, and I wanted to, I was wondering what to do professionally, didn't want to go back to my old career. So I love tea, I love books, I love reading, and I wanted to create something that would really bring these two together as a periodical, something that comes out regularly.
I see, but what I want to know, it's like you love tea, but what does it mean? I mean, how you pass from having a cup of your favorite tea every day or collecting tea to deciding to create a magazine about it? Why? I'm seriously curious about that.
Yeah, so I've always loved tea and I've always drank it, but I was never really knowledgeable about it for many years. And the idea of coming up with a magazine about tea, essentially about 3 years ago, I noticed there were a lot of new independent high quality magazines around from about all kinds of topics, and any kind of niche subject you look for, you can find a magazine about that. And these magazines, just like 80 Degrees, is something that you want to collect, that it's not something you read in half an hour and you discard it. So the whole idea was to produce something that people can collect, that they can appreciate visually and tactilely, and that it can also teach you something. And the best thing to learn about the subject is by teaching the subject, if you want. Now, I'm not exactly teaching through the magazine, but there's a lot of information that I have to search for and understand myself to be able to convey, which is the perfect thing for me, even for myself, to learn about tea in this way.
Yes, there are a lot of connection because you really have to connect with photographer, a tea producer. How do you do that? Just like through tea. I mean, tea is the link.
Yes, so the whole idea of the magazine was that there is so much to tea. The culture is so incredibly rich and varied. It's not just about the variety of teas that we have, but also all the pomp around it, the culture, the rituals, the ceramics, the equipment, all of that. There's just so much to tell about tea. Not to mention the story of the people who make tea and who make these ceramics and these utensils. So tea is a wonderful medium to connect all of this together and discover a wonderfully rich world that one can enjoy even just by drinking a cup of tea and understanding it better through this medium. They say in China that to understand Chinese culture, you have to start drinking tea. And I think that's a wonderful analogy for this.
Yes, there is much more beyond a cup of tea. During the previous conversation we had last week with Anna, this girl has an Instagram that calls Mindful Days, and she was really talking about how many people, how much work, how much land and nature there is beyond a cup of tea. And you in your magazine, you are doing that. You here in the last issues I saw you interview the farmers in Ububu tea farm in Japan that I visit, and it's I could see what you're telling here. It's just a diary of what they do daily, but it's very interesting. I think that when we talk about awareness of tea, these storytellings you do are very, very important. But one question, and this is the tricky, this is actually the pivotal point, and what I want to ask to people when I do these live sessions is, you are really passionate about tea, but you actually now tea is your work, is your job. So what tea represent for you now? What does it, I mean, how you combine this passion with your daily work and stress about editing a magazine?
Yes. My perception of tea definitely changed since I started the magazine. Before, it was just something I would have in the morning or in the afternoon, either having with food or just on its own, and I never really thought about it. And the selection of teas I would drink at a time was much more limited. I could count it on, fingers of one hand. Now, after about 3 years, I've learned so much more about it. It's become a job, but it's still something I enjoy a lot, thankfully. I hope I will not wake up one day and I will not be able to see tea anymore, because it's just so much work and stress to put this together. But it's it really elevates the drink to another level by knowing what goes behind the scenes, what goes on behind the scenes, what the people have to go through to put this together, to create tea. Um, Having traveled to China and Japan and other countries, it really broadens your mindset. And it's now, when I have tea, it's a completely different experience than before. Now I know much more about it. I can guess or have an educated guess about what it is, where it comes from. I know much better how to make it. It's much more difficult for me now to ruin tea by brewing it incorrectly, whereas before it was quite common.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different world for me, and it has become, probably because of the magazine and because I have traveled so much and I have managed to collect so many teas. Now my collection, I probably have 100 different types of tea at home, which I try to rotate all the time. So, and because there is such huge quantity of it, I have to make the point of drinking several of them every day, obviously for pleasure, but also I have a lot of it, so I need to make my way through it. So there is just so much of it I drink every day, and it's more of a, before tea was something on a kind of a primary school level. Now it's a proper university topic for me to drink and to understand. So it's.
And I see. I mean, do you study on the field? I mean, just by traveling, okay, but maybe now you're restarting, or in the past, or did you actually take courses and like deep, like academic
Yeah,
study, let's
no,
say?
no, I've not done any official studies of tea. It's really just through traveling and talking to the people, and researching on my own on my own side, but nothing official. No.
I totally agree. I mean, I was lucky. I lived in Japan, and when I was going to see and visit the tea farms, that was actually the moment I could learn them the most. And actually, as you said before, talking with the people and see how they work, what's there is beyond this, going really inside the factory, is something that help you to understand fully the process and what's behind. But my
I think,
question, tell me,
sorry, just
go
wanted to
ahead.
say that I think tea is a very difficult subject, theoretically. If you don't know much about it and you want to learn, the theory and the different types and the varieties and all, I think it's very complex. The best thing for me, what works for me, is to try them and to talk to the people who work with them. It's a much faster way for me to understand the topic than trying to make my way through a thick book on tea or something like that.
I see. And sorry, before I was interrupting you, my question again, because I really want to understand that you said you have 100 different type of teas and you actually have to drink tea during the day. But is there a moment? I mean, do you have a routine in which you say, now I really want to drink what I feel, and it's my moment. This is not for work. This is what I feel. Do you have a routine, or is just depending of how the day goes?
So funnily enough, about a week ago, I started being much more mindful about this. I always choose the tea I feel like drinking in a given moment, which is fine, but I always drink tea while doing something else. And if you read through the magazine, all these stories talk about how you should take time, how you should appreciate it, enjoy it in a quiet moment, and I totally get it, and I want to do that, but it's very difficult for me because working on the magazine. It feels like it's a much more than a full-time job. So, every waking hour of the day you want to be working on it, that means you have very little free time, even for tea. So, when I make my tea, I make it a proper way. I play with the gongfu style or what have you, but I always drink it while doing something else, doing emails or producing the next issue or so. But probably about a week ago, I realized that this is really not ideal, and I want to appreciate it a little bit better, and it's also a good excuse for me to take a break from work. So now I do have a couple of moments during the day where I say, okay, I'm stopping, I'm not doing any work for the next 15 minutes, and I'll just sit down and drink this tea that I I want to make.
I totally agree with you. I don't want to give the idea to people in order to follow these, let's say, tea is a philosophy, which is having tea with giving a moment to yourself, meaning that you need to sit down and
Mm,
focus on your cup of tea and watching it. This is what I call active meditation. So you do
mhm,
something else. You do tea, you even do your email, but this is your moment, your cup of tea. This is what Japanese people call also ikigai. So it's like doing something and you enjoy it so much that all the
mhm.
other thought just like goes away, right? And I can totally have my cup of tea while I'm doing something else. I was mentioned the other day, I chop vegetable, I prepare my lunch, but I have my cup of tea nearby.
Yeah.
And, I sip in it and find the same flavor in the fresh vegetable that I'm cutting, the same smell. I just can I do connection, and this is actually broad in my mind much more than say, okay, I do the gongfu cha because I bought the set. You can totally do active meditation, let's say tea meditation with your mug and tea bag, if it's a good quality tea bag. I totally, I agree. I want to tell you because people here, thank you very much, are interacting. There, I saw one question going through, and they asked you if you do see, if you enjoy different type of teas according to the different season. Like, how does your tea taste change? Autumn, summer,
Mm.
winter?
It's an interesting
Interesting.
question. I think I don't really pay attention to the seasons in the sense that, one tea works better for me in the winter than as opposed to the summer. But on the other hand, now it's spring and we're starting to get all the new spring green teas. So obviously it's kind of a thing I want to drink now because it's fresh and it's new. But for me, it's very cyclical. I like all kinds of tea. It's very difficult for me to pinpoint one that is better than another. It really depends on the mood and time of day, probably. But for instance, when I work on an issue which talks a lot about oolong or green tea, I tend to drink that type of tea while making the issue, and that takes 4 months. So I focus on that, and I love it, and I enjoy it, and I drink different variety of the type. But once the issue is out, then I'm going to look into a different type of tea. All of a sudden, I realize that I really crave this new type, being it
Mhm.
green or white or something else. So it really depends on the context. It's I don't think it's a mood to related thing. It just somehow happens and then it goes into a cycle.
For example, now, which one are you drinking now?
Now I have a beautiful aged white tea from a dear friend from Hong Kong. It's very unpretentious, but it looks beautiful as a leaf. I don't have the leaves on me now, but it's large leaves with lot of white
Mhm.
fuzz, and it's black and white in color almost. And it's super fragrant, and it's like perfect for this kind of discussion.
Good.
I don't drink it
Thank.
often because I have
Mhm.
very little of it. It's very rare for me, but it's a great time to enjoy it now.
And
What are
this
you
is also,
drinking?
I'm drinking hojicha. First of
Mm,
all, because here, well, same time, I think more or less, it's 9 o'clock in the night. And a lot of people, especially since I came back to Italy, in Japan, there were not this awareness of how much intake of caffeine you have.
mhm.
There, people drink hojicha and sencha instead of water. It's not an issue how many cup of teas.
Yeah,
They don't have this
yeah.
conception. So they don't, no issue, especially in the night. They say, yes, drink hojicha if you want to be sure. So yeah, I switched to this, instead of having some herbal tea. I prefer to have this taste, especially because I have it also during eating. So it's just like,
Mhm.
also after dinner. Yes, so it's really, for me, it's depending, yeah, time of the day and if I pair it with food or not. Do you
Mhm.
pair it with food? Do you drink while eating meals?
I pair it with dessert more than food. I think I don't usually have it with actual meals, but I have it after meal. even, while you're still having dessert when the occasion arises. But yeah, I don't. It's mainly on its own. I don't usually eat anything with it. But when you mention hojicha, it's a very interesting example because I had tried hojicha a few times before I went to Japan for the first time, and I never liked it. I found maybe it was maybe it was not a very good quality hojicha, or it was not particularly good batch, but I never enjoyed the roasted, almost smoky flavor. But then when I went to Japan for the first time a few years ago, anytime you go to a restaurant, you're served hojicha automatically, right? They don't even ask you; they just give it to you. And when you're in Japan, you do as the Japanese do. So I made the point. I was drinking it, and it took me 2-3 occasions, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So the context of me drinking that specific tea was very important. Now, when I have it, I don't have it very often, but when I make it at home now, I'm automatically transported to that moment in Japan, and it's just a beautiful memory and experience.
Yes,
So,
I think it was the same before going to Japan. I was more to sencha or gyokuro, nice green, very green. And then there, I actually saw for the first time where they roasted. And it happened, tea shop roast hojicha in the street. It's normal. And this smell is just like stuck with you. And it's just lovely. It's like fresh roasting hojicha.
yeah.
And I really hope people can try the authentic one, the good quality in Japan. I want to make you a last question also because, as I told also people, it's like 20 minutes, a teacup, they just can pop in and see us. I try to record this. Of course, I will save this. But one last question from your last 80 Degrees magazine related to a wonderful, I read it all several times. I love all, also because there is a lot of Japan in this issue. So I was just like, I love it. And you like Japan a lot. I love I read in the introduction, you spent such a lovely word about also the aesthetic of Japan. We can discuss about it another time maybe. But
For sure.
in this bread and butter tea, I found that there are like 3 essential things to do to live in a kind of mindfulness way. And it's just like stretch every morning 5 minutes. Always say thank you at the end of the day, especially, and find the tea you love and make it your safe one. Do you have a tea which is your fundamental also?
I would have to say I have a few of them because 99% of mornings I have tea for breakfast or after breakfast, and that's always black tea. I never have green or anything or oolong or anything else. So I need to have a staple black tea, and that's usually Assam. And in the afternoon, it definitely changes to something more green or more oolongy. So there you would have something else again. And in the evening, it's most often something like pu'er. So it's very difficult to have one, but I totally agree with the fact that you should find one, as Max describes in the article, something inexpensive, something that is easily obtainable, and to always have a large quantity of it in your stash, because it's just simple. And sometimes whether you're busy or whatever reason prevents you don't have the time to spend a long time thinking about what you want. You just go for it because it's there, you enjoy it, and it's always accessible to you. So yes, I totally agree. Do you have a staple tea?
For me, it's I go by wave. So I'm in the wave of, and I buy a lot of it. And because I was living in Japan, for example, before leaving the country, I bought a lot of hojicha and the fresh, for example, the new shincha. I wanted to have a lot because I knew it was also rare. But while I was there, on the contrary, it's always you want what you don't have. I was craving for Chinese teas. And so, I would just like buying large quantity of one tea and having it a day again and again. So yeah, for me, it changed a lot. And it's really about cravings of something you can understand. Well, thank you very much, Martin. I think 20 minutes are gone, and it was beautiful to talk with you. I hope we can talk together again because I had a lot
Absolutely.
of questions and I couldn't. And I saw also people very interested about our conversation and making questions. So let's follow up. And
Sure,
when it's
let's do.
going to be the next issues, actually, give us some information how to get it and what's next.
Great question. Great question. Hopefully in the next, probably within the next 2 months, there should be another one. And
Okay.
can't really tell you more about the content just yet because it's still
Didn't ask.
being made in the process. But yeah, you know,
Okay.
it's being made.
So people can go on your page here and follow the link. And
Absolutely,
I
yes.
used to receive it in Japan, so you really ship worldwide. And
We do ship
thank you
worldwide,
very
and
much.
we
It
also
was
have about 100 stockists already around the world. So it's
okay.
quite easy to get the magazine.
Yes, it is. I can confirm that. So thank you. I
Thank you,
talk to you
Lisa.
soon. Yeah, it
Yes.
was very,
Have a
very
good
nice.
evening.
Have a good evening, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.